I'm Steven, joined by Lloyd. We're from Just Got Played, and we are talking about gaming through mechanisms. So, what does that mean? Well, mechanisms are the way that we describe how you interact with a board game, a card game, tabletop game. We like to categorize things, put them in different buckets so we can talk about them in an intelligent way. Although I have to tell you, today we're talking about a lot of different buckets, really. They sort of all feel like they're together because we're talking about roll and write games. Roll and write games are where you roll some dice and then you do something as a result of those dice, usually checking off some boxes or drawing on something. I mean, Yahtzee is really a roll and write game. You're checking off one of the things. That's an old roll and write. But there's also flip and write, where you flip a card instead of rolling dice, and then you write something based on that. But then there's also like flip in place, where you put something down instead of writing. Really not that much difference. I mean, there's roll in place. There's even flick and write. And boy, probably several other iterations on these games. And we're going to talk about a few different kinds actually today. So Lloyd and I are going to tell you our two favorite games in this broad category that we just talked about. And then we're going to tell you what were the two favorite games from the People's Choice poll that we did earlier. So let's start off with Lloyd. Lloyd, what's your number one?
Well, I am going to start off with one of the offshoots of the genre, which is a flick and write, and that is Sonora. Right? Sonora? Yeah, Sonora. I always want to call it Sonoma, and I don't know why, but Sonora.
They're both places.
Sonora is a flick and write that the general premise is you have a board similar to like a crokinole board, except you don't have any little pins in the middle. There is a center space, and then on the four kind of corners of the map, it's a round board, but the four quarters, I guess, instead of corners. Each one of those is a different little mini game, or it corresponds to a different mini game on your sheet that you're gonna be filling in. And you take discs that are numbered from 1 to 5, and you take turns flicking them into the board to try and get the disc to land in different spaces. And then each of them scores a little bit different, but your discs are going to give you different points to use on those different mini games. And then if you get it into the center space, similar to crokinole, you get like an immediate score from it, and then you can pull it out. And your little disc is pretty much safe from other people's stuff hitting it and knocking it out of the space that you so meticulously planned and flipped it into. So when you do that in the middle, you can pull it out and you can basically score it. You can put it on any of the mini games, and then you can score it at the end like you would normally score, but it's now safe, right? So the way the game works, each of the mini games is a little bit different. You have one that is just a series of different boxes that just takes your total of however many you have in there. You total it up, and then you can fill in that many boxes, and whoever has the highest number gets to start filling in boxes first. So that mini game is basically whoever fills in completes. There's several shapes that vary in number of boxes, and the more boxes they have, the better the rewards. But whoever has the highest score gets to fill in first, and whoever fills in and completes one of those little shapes first gets the higher bonus and some type of, typically like a wild that you can use somewhere else. Then there's another mini game that is basically like Tetris pieces. You score all of your discs individually. So a 3-point will give you access to a certain couple shapes, but basically Tetris pieces. And then you're filling in kind of like, looks like a crossword puzzle. And you're trying to draw in the shapes to cover up different bonuses, and you're scoring on like the things you covered, plus you're scoring like wilds to use on other places. And the next mini game is what is the next mini game? One of them is like a river, and when you do the river, it like branches. So you start in the same spot, but as you branch out, you basically circle the numbers as you go, and as you get to specific things, whatever one you end on, you score that one that you end on. And then you basically you have all these branching paths to get different rewards, different bonuses based on what you're trying to do with your overall scoring. And the last one, I'm kind of blanking on. It has something to do with, I can't remember that one for some reason. There's a fourth mini game, and
it's Rochambeau.
No. I'm seriously blanking on it, but that one has to do with I think you're like working outwards. I can't remember. I know you're basically trying to get to the outer areas of the map. That's where all the big scores are. I just don't remember exactly how that one works. But the reason why I like it is because there's a couple different things going on. You have the flicking, which is its own little mini game of trying to get the disc where you want it to be. And it also, each turn, because you don't switch seats, but each turn, each round, you're going to rotate the board 45 or 90 degrees so that what's across from you is always different. So it makes kind of like the way the game goes. You kind of figure out where you want to shoot. Because at the end, you're going to end up with, you know what you're going to end up in front of. So sometimes scoring on the one that's directly across from you isn't the greatest idea, because by turn 3, it's going to be in front of you, and it's going to be near impossible to shoot into because you can't shoot directly into that. You have to bounce it to get it back. So you can never just kind of plop it right into the zone in front of you. So there's some, play there. And there's also the, flicking the disc to hit other people's out of the way, which is always fun. But then it's kind of like if you've played the super arcade pinball, whatever. Once you start getting high enough and getting all those bonuses, eventually becomes like just your turn just kind of spirals because everyone's scoring at the same time. But it's just one thing leads to the next that leads to the next, because you got a bonus, then you can take that bonus and use it over here. Then that back over here, and then that triggers another bonus. And by the end of the game, even though you've only flicked the same 5 discs you did on turn 1, on round 1, on round 3, you're now doing 50 things. So it just becomes that kind of endorphin rush of, I'm getting to do all this stuff, and your score just like balloons up. So that is my number 1, Sonora.
That's interesting because, usually when I think of these games, I think of, some random thing and then something else. But this is actually, you've got some skill here, right? There's dexterity in this flicking. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty bad at flicking games. I think probably because I haven't played them a lot. I mean, I've been to conventions where pitch car is set up, so I've messed around with a pitch car thing, and I'm just like, wow, I'm bad at this. And then for Christmas, I got a good deal on a copy of, what is it, Catacombs and Castles, or Castles and Catacombs or something, right? So that's a flicking game, and I'm bad at that. So I mean, you probably just have to, play. You play to get better at those games. So I guess that makes sense. I haven't played a lot, so I'm bad at it. But yeah, interesting. I definitely would play it. I definitely would be bad at it, but I would probably enjoy it anyway. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. It's kind of like all the flicking games. You just kind of have to, because they all feel different, right? They all have different weights, different materials, the size of the board. So it's just because you're good at like crokinole, like you watch those championships of crokinole where it's just like middle shot, middle shot, middle shot again and again. And it's like, would those guys be any good at this game? Because it's a completely different surface. The discs are smaller. You just kind of got to get the feel for it. But a lot of times it's just like flicking it into the middle and watching people's stuff explode. So,
Yeah, cool. Speaking of, I need to play crokinole. I've never played it. So maybe next convention I'll pull one off the wall or wherever they're displaying that cool board and play it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I mentioned that when I was thinking about these games, I was thinking about games that were random and then something. But I also, just by sort of default, was thinking of games that play at higher player counts, like 99 players or 100 players or something like that. And those games are coming. The People's Choice are games like that. And the People's Choice games are also very high on my list. So, normally it's pretty easy for me to pick my number 1 and my number 2. I had to think about it for a little bit, but I was sort of all over the place on these. Wasn't sure what I was going to choose. So I guess for my number 1, I'm going to pick one also partially because I know it would be John's number 1. We talked about this. He couldn't be here today, but we talked about it. And so I'm going to go with the Guild of Merchant Explorers, which if you've watched some of our recent videos, you may have heard John talk about this recently. But this is definitely a flip and place. I mean, it could have been a flip and right, but it's a flip and place, and because it has components that you're placing on your little board, it is limited to 4 players. But essentially, there are these cards that flip over, and they say, "Hey, you can put one of your paths, one of your things, explorer tokens, or whatever it is that's connecting these paths, because you're putting these on a map to connect things. You can put it in the mountains, or you can put it in 2 of the desert squares, or in 3 of the sea squares, or there's a grasslands one, and there's these basic ones, and they show up every era. There's 4 different eras, but what makes the game cool and what makes the game fun is because if everybody was just sort of doing the same thing, I'm not sure it would be that interesting of a game because everybody has the same map and the same cards are coming up from everybody. But in Era 1, the tech card 1 comes up. Or I'm not sure that's what it's called, something like that. And you're given 2 unique cards to choose from. And you choose one of those, and that becomes your unique level 1 card. And so whatever it does, you do it right then when you get it. But that card is also going to come up in Era 2 and in Era 3 and in Era 4. And that's going to be something that you uniquely can do. Your opponents don't get to do that. And then, so in Era 2, you'll have all the basic cards and you'll have the level 1 card. And then again, a new card will come out, a new choice. You'll have 2 cards and you get a choice in Era 2. And then in Era 3, that will happen again. So you'll have 3 unique cards at that point. And then in Era 4, in addition to playing all 3 of those cards and the basic cards, there'll be another card that comes out that says use one of your 1, 2, or 3 abilities again. So those cards are very powerful. They let you put a lot of stuff out. I mean, when you sit down and play the game originally, you're like, well, here's a map and I need to connect these things to score points, or I need to get over here to explore this thing to score points. And you're like, well, how am I going to get anywhere with these, basic cards that are coming out? Because it's the tech cards that really let you push, and make a lot of progress in the game. And you don't even know what your tech cards are when you start playing. And it's interesting too, because your progress sort of gets wiped out at the end of every era. So you have to fill in an area to have discovered a village so that you can put a village down and then you can start exploring from that village. If you just put out some things and maybe mark off some stuff, collect some coins, maybe some ruins or something, then at the end of the first era, all that's going to go away and you're going to be back to square 1, and you want to connect these cities for trade routes to score points that way. There's a bunch of different ways that you can score points, but you don't know what cards are coming, but you don't know what order they're coming up in. So you have to be ready for that. You're like, well, if this comes first, I'll go this way. If this comes first, I'll go that way. And then you just deal with it however it comes out. And then of course there's the surprise of the tech card in the first 3 eras. You don't know what tech card you're going to get. So you just roll with that as well. And there's that, especially in the early, Era 1, you're looking at 2 tech cards and you're like, this would really benefit me now, but this other card might be better to take because it's going to trigger several more times, right? Maybe it would be better to have this other card, even though this one would, in this specific situation I'm in right now, would be better. So you've got those kind of tough decisions. So a lot of interesting stuff going on, but definitely it's a card flips. Everybody does a thing responsible from that. And then you put your stuff on the map instead of just drawing on the map. You put little wooden pieces down. I don't know how I think about the presentation of this game. And it's an old timey looking map and you're putting these little cubes out. And so I like that. I think other people think it looks sort of boring, like they would walk by it at the table and just not even like, oh, that looks boring, and just keep going, but I like the look of it. I guess it depends on where you stand on cartography as art.
Yeah, it just kind of looks like an older game, like looking at the art.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it is just little cubes that you're putting out. So that's part of it, right? There was a time when it's just like, oh, the green cube is wood and the yellow cube is wheat. Everything was just cubes. And we sort of gotten past that as production goes, wasn't it little ships or something, or little meeples, or, something a little more interesting, I guess. But, either way, my friend broke it out. I played it. I liked it. So, and when we, that was the first time at a con. And then when we were at the game store, just at a weekly game meetup, we were playing it and other people wanted to play too. In fact, since it only accommodates 4, we could only 2 other people could play with us. And there were at least 2 or 3 other people who wanted to play. So, there's some interest there, but, I guess varies per person, per group, whatever. But anyway,
Yeah.
that is the Guild of Merchant Explorers. Possibly the most generic name you're going to hear on this list. Maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. So Lloyd, what do you have? Is you have a generic name for your second choice?
Maybe. I mean, one of the words is dice, so I mean that's kind of generic. So
Unless it doesn't have dice in it, because then it's meta.
No, it's definitely got dice. So this is a roll and write, and this one is called Harvest Dice. And I chose this one because a little local game store opened around here. And when it first opened, me and my wife wanted to go in and look around and support it. And, she wanted to buy something. So she found this cute little game that has farmer and a pig on it. And, it says it's 15 minutes or maybe it says 30 minutes. I don't know. It's a short game, but essentially Harvest Dice. This has 9 dice in it. It is limited to 4 players. Because essentially what you're doing is you are planting 3 different crops. You're planting carrots, lettuce, and tomatoes. So you have 9 dice. And depending on the player count, you might pull some of those dice out. So like in like a 2-player game, you're only using 6 dice. So you pull 1 of each color out. So one player has a control little pig marker to show he's the first player marker or the first player. They roll their dice, and the numbers correspond to your crops. So you have a little garden, and it goes from 1 to 6, and you have 3 rows. And the biggest mistake most people seem to make, we've played with, is that they think they can only plant one thing in each row, and that's not the case. You can go hog wild and do only carrots or only tomatoes if you can pull that many dice. But essentially, you are planting the things based on the number. So the only thing that's specifically locked in with the placement is obviously if you get a lettuce that's a 6, you have to put it in the 6th column. And then if on your subsequent turns, if you take another lettuce die, it has to either be a 5 to go next to it or a 6 to go in the next column down. So it has to touch the previous one, essentially. The first one can go anywhere on the map or on the little, grid. And then the rest have to basically touch the previous one. There are ways to break those rules. Well, not break the rules. There's ways to mitigate the dice to change them. And if you're playing the advanced game, it does come with 2 different versions of the game. It comes with the simple rules, which only allow you to change the dice number up or down with some pig points. But if you play the advanced rules, it allows you to actually change the color and the number of the die using those same pig points. So the way you get the little pig points is if you take a die that you can't place, and you don't have to take a die that you can place. You can choose to take a 6 that you cannot place just to feed the pig. And basically you feed the pig by filling in whatever the dice number is, and you fill them up. And each row is like, I think, 6 spaces. And when you get to the end of each row, you get a bonus to allow you to, the little pig point, to be able to change your die to mitigate it. The game essentially ends in one of 3 ways. If someone completely fills out their garden, so all 18 spots are done. If the pig spaces, somebody fills up all of the pig spaces, which I think go up to maybe there's 8 rows. Maybe, I don't remember the exact count, but if someone fills up all of their pig spaces, it might be 10. I don't remember. Or if one of the markets fills up. So the way the dice work is you roll the dice, and then you take turns drafting, and whatever die is left, that's going to cross off one of the specific the market spaces of that commodity. So if you leave a tomato, it's going to fill up the tomato. So part of the game is figuring out which ones to leave or which ones to draft so that you can control the market, right? Because if you plant mostly tomatoes, then you want the tomato market to be the first one to fill up, because the way you score points at the end of it is you take whatever you filled in. So if you have 10 tomatoes and you multiply that by whatever the market score is. So if you filled in 5 spaces, then all of your tomatoes are worth 5. And then maybe your carrot's only worth 1 because people kept drafting carrots and never left them. So whoever took those carrots is getting 1 point for all of their 20 carrots, and you're getting 5 points for your 10 tomatoes. So that's part of the game. And then there's some bonuses. Whoever has the most of each of the commodities gets a bonus, like I think it's like 5 points. You get 5 points for filling out every row. For each row, you get 5 points for each of those. And then whoever has the highest pig score gets a bonus for that. So that can kind of swing it, because usually the scores are pretty close unless someone's really not paying attention to the market and someone runs away with, like I said, someone plants 10 of one crop and really drives the market price up so that it's worth a ton of points. But that's the game. It's like 3 rounds. Oh, no, it's not 3 rounds. It ends whenever one of those things happens. It's fairly quick. And like I said, we've played quite a bit of it. My wife really likes it. We always play the advanced rules, so you can have that, more mitigation of your dice. Yeah, it's a cute little game from, we just looked it up, Danny Devine. It's from Gray Fox. It's older. I think it's probably at this point, it's maybe like 5 or 6 years old, but it's a fun little game. Tiny little box. So
cool. So for those of you watching this who don't know, Lloyd is our editor supreme for Just Got Played, and I'm going to be very disappointed in Lloyd if he doesn't put up a counter on the screen, a pig points counter, for every time somebody says pig points during this review, because I was just chuckling to myself, pig points, pig points, pig points.
Okay, I will put a pig point counter, and that was another one. We're up to 17 now.
I'll throw some more in later, just randomly when you're not expecting.
Oh, yeah, great! Because I don't listen to the videos when I edit.
Oh, yeah, you just have to remember. All right, well, so let's move on to my number 2 game instead of talking about pig points some more. So I mentioned that I was thinking of games that were random and then something, and games that were high player count and something, but then when I decided I was going with the Guild of Merchant Explorers, I was like, maybe it doesn't have to be 99 players. And this is a game that I think plays up to 6 players, but I got a good deal on 2 sets. I have actually combined 2 sets so that we can play 12. And I think that's right, 12, unless it's 10. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's 12. And that is Tiny Towns. So Tiny Towns, interestingly enough, I think the way that I play it is a variant that's in the rulebook. Because if you play it the way that it's designed, it's none of these things. Basically, what's happening on the board is you have a board, and it's just a grid, and you're placing, I think it's 5 different resources. There's like red and yellow and brown and blue. There's a blue, and is it black or gray? And there are different things like stone and glass and brick or whatever, right? But they're just those colored cubes. And what happens is every turn you're going to get one of those colored cubes, and you need to put it somewhere on your board. And wherever you put it on your board, then you can, after you've placed it, you can decide to turn in a pattern to build a building. So there's a bunch of different buildings out, and there's some randomization in how the game is played. So a lot of the buildings have 3 or 4 different versions that can be out there. So you might have a building and it's like a red, blue, black, right? And you can mirror it and rotate it and whatever, but essentially it's a polyomino shape. And if you have that pattern on your board, you can take those cubes off and then build that building, which has to go on one of the squares that one of those cubes was on. So it's this interesting puzzle because the buildings score differently depending on how they are built in relation to each other. So you're trying to build this pattern, but you have to put the building where the cubes were, and the cubes, like, if you can't fit an L shape of cubes in there to get a building in there, you've got to build something else there. And the game ends when you're just, your thing is full and you can't fill it up anymore because either you have cubes that are sort of orphaned that can't be turned into a building, or you've, filled up the building somehow. So anyway, normally you play the game and whoever's turn it is, they call out a resource. They call out the resource that they want, right? And everybody does that. And then the next person then calls out. But the way that we actually play it is it comes with a deck of cards, and you turn the card over and it's like, oh, blue. Everybody has to put down a glass. this turn, right? Okay, everybody has to put down a red this turn, and then I think it's the third one. Every third one, everybody gets to choose whatever they want instead of that's what you do the third round, and then you flip more cards or whatever. So the way we play it is a flip and place. And it could be a flip and right too. I mean, it feels a lot like that. Again, it's limited by components, but like I said, it scaled super easy. I just threw another set in there. There are these monument cards where everybody gets a monument, and so you have some specific design you can build for some specific unique scoring potential. And those are cool, and some of those don't necessarily work if you've got too many players or whatever. But you can easily scale this game up to more players. So that's why it sort of feels like these other types of games to me. And there are expansions to this and promos and stuff. Because I had 2 copies of the game, I never went out and got the expansion because I didn't want to buy 2 copies of the expansion. Also, there's some games where I just kind of like the base game and it's simple. And usually I want simple. Like if I'm explaining a game to 10 people, I don't want it to be complicated, right? It's got to be pretty simple and pretty quick to explain. So if expansions add, if they just add variety under the same rule set, like cards or buildings or something, then fine. But if they add like new mechanisms, new twists or whatever, I'm like, usually I don't want that. It's pretty rare that makes it easier to explain or the game shorter, although occasionally it does. But anyway, Tiny Towns, it's a whole lot of fun. I think it's fairly simple. I've given it as a gift to families that aren't, like hardcore gamers or whatever, And so they were a little intimidated, like, what are we doing here? But you just show them and they're like, oh, okay, I get it, right? And it's fine. It's good. We like playing Tiny Towns. And it is one of those games that would hit my table if, like, say 10 people show up to my house. So
whenever you mentioned it, I was like, it sounds familiar, but I don't remember playing. But as soon as you started describing it, I was like, oh yeah, I did play this a long time ago when I used to, lose at Magic, and then I would, go play games at cool stuff afterwards. But when we played it, we didn't like it because of one simple thing. That grid you talked about, it was so like it just messed with our placement on stuff, because it was like, oh, it's a red row, but I'm not limited to placing red. And it was just like this weird thing that neither one of us, when we were playing, I think there was 3 of us playing, and we all had the same problem when we went to place stuff, and it just couldn't. It just messed with our brain that the rows and the columns were different colors and they didn't match up with what you were doing.
The rows and columns on the map they're all just green. It's like a field. So maybe you're thinking of something else.
No, it's that. Because whenever you fill out the row, you put a new building down the top of it. So that's how you get new stuff. But I'd have to go back and look, but I could have swore like across the top there were different colors, and whatever it was, it didn't make sense. And it wasn't just me. It was like all of us that were playing were just like completely perplexed, and we kept messing stuff up because of the color placement.
Yeah,
it just didn't match up.
I've definitely seen games that overload colors and confuse people, but I don't really remember that for this one. We did have a debate way back when we did the polyomino game video. We had a little bit of debate where, and this is what, isn't one of my favorite polyomino games, but I listed it off as a polyomino game when we were talking, and somebody was objecting to that because you don't place the polyominoes down. You build a polyomino pattern and remove it. And so, ultimately it didn't matter. Nobody really wanted to put Tiny Towns on their best polyomino games list. But I was like, it's a polyomino game. And I don't know, whatever.
Well, I was going to put Sonora on that list because I don't play polyomino games, but one of the mini games is drawing polyominoes on that little crossword puzzle like thing. So I was going to include that, but I just didn't. It wasn't enough. One mini game out of 5 wasn't good enough.
Yeah, that doesn't really feel like a polyomino game because it has a polyomino in it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, that is my number 1 and 2, and that was your number 1 and 2. So let's talk about the people's choice. And well, just chime in here if you play these games and could talk about them. How are you with Welcome to?
That was on my short list.
Yeah.
I've played that quite a bit. So that one.
All right.
You said that was the number 2 choice?
That was the people's number 2. I'm saving the people's number 1 for last. But yeah, so Lloyd, why don't you tell us what's up with Welcome to.
Okay, so just go back and watch my the ABC's video and get to the W one, and that was my top pick. So there you go.
Oh,
done.
right. Okay.
Summed up.
I forgot.
Welcome to is a game for 1 to 99 players, but essentially you can play it with 1 billion if you have enough pads and everyone can see the cards.
Or PDFs for everybody.
Yeah. Basically enough sheets of something to mark on or on the computer or whatever. Yes. But essentially what you have is this is a flip and right. You have a little score pad. It's got 3 rows, 3 streets. And I believe it goes from like 10 to 12 houses. I think the first one has 10, then 11, then 12, I think.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
The cards go from 1 to 15. And essentially what you're doing is you put out 3 decks of cards. You kind of split them evenly. And then the cards are double-sided. One side has a number and a preview of what's going to be on the back side of the card. And the other one has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are like 6 little different mini games that are there. You have pools and garden or parks, fences, the real estate market, the caution, and yes, the biz, which allows you to place a duplicate number, which allows you to actually place 2 houses. So essentially what you're doing is you're matching a number with whenever you flip the cards, you flip one off of each deck, you get a number, and you get one of those 6 or whatever, 7, I don't remember what I counted up to, little icons that kind of determine how you're going to place your numbers on your houses. And the rule of placement is that your numbers have to go from low to high. They don't necessarily have to go in numerical order, but they do have to go in ascending order. So you can have it go 1, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10. And part of the game, of course, is you go from 1 to 15, and you have to kind of figure out where you want to put those in your streets. There is a little bit of mitigation with the numbers that come out. If you get the little hazard, the construction ones, those allow you to go from negative to +2. So you can change it to -2, -1, 0, or +1 or +2. So you can technically get up to 17, but you can't get any lower than a 1. You can't go to like a -1.
Oh, I thought you couldn't write over a 15, even with those. Okay.
Oh, I have to check the rules. Maybe I've always been playing it wrong. I thought you could go
maybe I've been teaching it wrong.
Yeah. I thought you could go up to 17, but you couldn't go negative. Maybe I'm wrong, whatever. But you have that one, and then you have the biz, which we talked about, which allows you to essentially you have to place the number of the house that you chose. So if you take a 3 and a biz, you have to place the 3 house somewhere, but then you also get to duplicate another house somewhere else. But every time you use a biz, it keeps racking up more negative points. All of the different little mini games are going to give you different points, and they all score a little bit differently. So whenever you're scoring for the pools, however many pools you get, it's just everyone kind of gets the same points. The more pools you get, it's just a scale. So 1 is worth 1, then the next one's worth 3, and it just keeps going up from there. Whenever you do the hazards, whoever has the most of the little hazards, the construction signs crossed off, gets the most points, and then it kind of goes down until I think you can only get the top 3, right? The biz is negative points, so the more of those you have, the more negative they have. You have the parks, which if you take a park, wherever you place the number of that house, you cross off one of the park circles on that street. And the more you cross off, the higher those parks are worth. So each street has a different scale of parks, and you get to add all of those up at the end. Next one is, I called it the market, the real estate market, but I don't really know what that one's called. I don't remember. But essentially, when you take it, you can mark off in one of the sections, all of your houses are worth essentially a point, or 3 points or 5 points. They all have like a starting value based on whether they're a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, a 6. And you can, if you know what you're going for and you know that you're going to be working towards 6s, you can start, if you take that market one, you can cross off a circle and it keeps making them higher and higher and higher. So a 6, instead of scoring you 10 points, is now worth 15 points for every 6 market that you make. And the way you make those, called it a market. What are they called? Estates. So every time you make one of the,
okay.
I think it's what it's called. Every time you make basically a group of houses, the way you group those off is you take the fences. So when you take a number with a fence, you fill in a number somewhere, and then you can put a fence anywhere on your map. And the fences essentially go in between houses. And in order to get those different size houses, you draw a fence and then a fence on the other side, and then you can connect them. And then that's now a complex, a duplex, a quadruplex, whatever, of that many houses. And the reason why you might want to do different versions of those is because of the 3 public goals, which I forgot to mention. There's 3 public goals, and the game can end in a couple different ways. If someone can't place 3 times, if someone fills out their entire neighborhood, or if one person gets all 3 of those goals. And those goals vary from getting all the pools on one street to filling out all of like the parks on certain streets, getting a certain number of 2 and 3 houses, different variations of that with different amounts of houses that you have to get in those little estates. And then there's a ton of expansions that do all kinds of random other things. Like I have a Halloween one that allows you to get candy and collect ghosts and pumpkins. And those give you a different scoring option as well, in addition to the regular scoring option. So that is essentially Welcome to. You're flipping cards over and you just go until, like I said, one of those 3 things happens. Someone can't place a number because there's no legal place. And when you fill it out 3 times, if you fill out all 3 public goals, or if you fill out your entire neighborhood. And there is like an advanced variant or advanced rule, which I don't ever play with because it's a little bit too complex for my wife. But essentially you can play with roundabouts, which allow you to like start your numbering over. And I think I've only played that like twice. So I don't really remember exactly how it works, but I think at some point you can put a roundabout and you can start it over. And I think the roundabouts might be worth negative points too at the end.
Yeah, I think so.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I really like Welcome to. I think the game was changing publishers, so the old publisher was like liquidating all those extra maps. So I got, for the original game, I got all the extra maps, and I haven't played 2 of them. I haven't played the Doomsday and Zombie Apocalypse ones, whatever. But I've played, I think there's 6 others maybe that I've played. Yeah. So I don't know. There's summer and spring, and because I played the Easter egg, and I played the ice cream truck, and I played the holiday lights, and I played the Halloween. Maybe I've only played the extra 4. I don't know. Those are hit or miss with me, right? Like I didn't like the ice cream truck one at all, right? We've got this ice cream truck. Basically, it's rewarding you for building your buildings sequentially, and I don't mean in sequential order, but actually sequentially constructing them in sequential order. The Winter Lights is a little bit like that too. So I don't know. They had some complications that I feel like are unnecessary with this game, which incidentally is what Welcome to New Las Vegas or something is called. The sequel to the game is that, and I feel like that's just unnecessary complications. And then there's also Welcome to the Moon, which I pulled out Welcome to the Moon at a convention to just sort of goof around with it while I was waiting for somebody else to finish up their game so we could play something else. And I don't know. I didn't like it. It had some sort of like like screw up your neighbor's map.
Yeah, and it's like it's like a campaign too, right? Like you go through different stages. I've looked at it. I haven't played it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some people say that's the best version of the game, but for me, I don't know. It's just the original Welcome to. Is you don't need any of that other fluff. It's a great game just by itself. So
we only play the Halloween one around Halloween time, but the rest of the time we just play the regular standard version just because it's very easy. Like I said, the other one just adds a couple extra scoring options, which you're already overloading someone with stuff, and then you're like, well, on top of the normal rules, here's these other extra rules. So it's like,
yeah, I liked the Halloween because you choose whether is it ghosts or candy. Is that the 2 choices?
I Yeah, there's something with jack-o'-lanterns, I think, and then there's
Okay, it
something
was
with candy.
jack-o'-lanterns or
Yeah,
ghosts, or one definitely was ghosts, right? Well,
I
anyway, but
think
there's
so.
basically two different things you choose when you select different houses. You can get
Yeah,
these extra things, and then you can cash those in for extra rewards. And there's a little bit of a race to get the better one, etc. So that
yeah.
that one I felt was an interesting twist on the game without unnecessarily complicating the game. So there's some good stuff out there, but definitely I would just start with the base game anyway, because if you don't like that, you're not going to like any of the others.
Yeah. Yeah, just add more.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, that was, and by a decent margin, that was the number 2 choice of the people. There were some other choices out there. Tiny Towns actually did pretty well in the people's poll. But the number 1 game, which I was a little surprised that Welcome to wasn't number 1, actually. But the number 1 game in the people's choice poll was Cartographers, which is, I think, from Thunderworks Games. They have a whole sort of universe that they set these games in, whatever that role
It's like the role player.
Yeah. They've got a few games in that universe. So, but basically, thematically, there's not much going on here. You are drawing a map. And it is a flip and write. You flip over cards and you draw the thing on the cards. And it's you put out like an A, B, C, and D, and those are 4 different ways things will score during the game. So A scores this way, B scores this way, C scores this way, D scores this way. But then, like several other games do, you play in 4 different eras. And in the first era, like A and B scores, and then B and C and D, and then D and A. So they all get scored twice. But after like the second era, B is never going to score again. So you could forget about it. Right. So if you're going to bother with B, you need to do it early and then forget about it. So that's an interesting thing. And the way each of the seasons work is you turn over the card that tells you, where to draw the thing, well, not where, but what to draw on your map, and you decide where to draw it. And you'll keep turning over until you reach a certain number. I think it's 8, because the cards have numbers on them, and that determines that era is over, and now you do the scoring, and then you go into the next one. And there's some other rules too about monuments or temples or whatever the other things are called. But the one thing that, and to be honest, we don't even play with this. It has a take that mechanism in this game as well, because they have ambush cards that come up. So an ambush card will come up, and then you're supposed to hand your map to your player on your left or right. I can't remember how you decide which it is. And then they draw some blocking stuff on your map. And so now not only is that stuff in the way of maybe whatever you were trying to do for the scoring mechanism, but you have to surround the stuff that they drew on your map, because those are goblins or monsters or something on your map now. And if you don't surround them, they're negative points. So, I don't like building towards something and then just randomly somebody's like, hey, I screw you up, So I don't play with those cards. I leave them out. I don't even know if that's an official variant. I just thought I would mention that I like this game and I like to play this game, but I don't actually play the game. So, well, kind of like with Tiny Towns. Like I don't even play the game. I play a variant of the game.
Yeah.
But if you like building out maps, this is cool. It's definitely got that cool sort of puzzly thing. Look at these 4 scoring objectives. How am I going to draw these things that are coming out so that they will, align with those objectives? And I think there's expansions, Cartographer Heroes, which technically this vote was for the public. I don't know what Heroes adds. It might add skills or something that maybe makes each player a little more unique. There's promos and stuff that do things like that as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on with this. I think any successful of these flip and write, roll and write, or whatever basically becomes a system, and then you have a bunch of stuff around it, because it's so easy to expand, extend. One of these games that is just a pencil, a deck of cards, and a pad of paper, right? Yeah, so you've played Cartographers maybe once, or?
I played it once, and once you started describing the ambush thing, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. But I only played it the one time, and I don't remember enough about it. But when you did the ambush, I do remember that, because I remember passing my pad to someone, and they drew some crap on there, and then I like, oh, thanks, great.
Yeah, well, see, that's the other thing about passing it to somebody else. I mean, not only did I describe that I hate it when I'm building towards something and somebody just arbitrarily sort of gets to block it. Like I didn't know they were going to get to block it or when they were going to get to block it, just arbitrarily gets blocked or whatever. But also, I mean, there's a real skill level thing there, right? So if you're playing with some new players and an experienced player, it's like whoever passes their pad to the experienced player is going to get just, already the experienced player has an advantage, right? Because they've played the game, so they understand how the scoring works better. But then that's just doubly bad when it's time for them to do their ambush stuff. So, there's a lot of reasons I don't like that. I know there's some publishers out there that will take a game and say, hey, this is a perfectly good game, but add some take that to it because I require take that in my game. And that feels like, I have no idea if that's what happened here, but this is what that feels like, right? This feels like it was a perfectly good game that somebody just crammed some take that into. And why do I feel that way? Because we play without it and it's a perfectly good game without it, right? Like some games you can't take that out, right? The game just falls apart. It doesn't work or whatever. But this one, it's just feels like it was just shoehorned in there for some reason and it doesn't need to be there.
Player interaction, probably. They're like, how do you get player interaction? Yeah, take that.
Yeah, well, that makes some sense, right? So in games like, I'm cool with indirect player interaction. Like Welcome to, you mentioned there's public objectives, and the person who gets to those first, Guild of Merchant Explorers is like that too. Whoever gets to the objective first gets basically double points than somebody who gets to it later, right? So there's indirect player interaction there, but Cartographers doesn't have anything like that, right? Everybody could literally just sit there and draw the exact same map.
Yeah, exactly.
if you didn't have something like that. So maybe that's what they were trying to prevent. Maybe pro cartographer players would all just draw the same map if you didn't get to it. It seems like they would all ambush each other in the same way too then. So
the optimal play. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, because there's randomness, you don't know the order the cards are going to come up. There is no calculatable optimal play, but there are definitely some plays that are better than others based on the scoring that's out and what cards are in the deck. I mean, but so some cards may just not come out because the season ends before those cards come out, which is kind of cool, right? I mean, I like that. And then there's those ruin cards that come out, and when they come out, you have to play the thing you played on a ruin space. There's several different ruin spaces to choose. So there's, some sort of variety in what people would theoretically choose there. If you can't place whatever it is that you're supposed to be drawing on the map, maybe because you can't fit it on a ruin space or it just doesn't fit because your map is already mostly full, then you just fill in one space somewhere with the thing. And some of the cards that come up, they have two choices. So you choose, I'm going to build the thing on the left or the thing on the right? Like I'm going to build this shape of green or the shape of yellow, trees or plains or I can't remember all the different types of water, trees, etc. And then some of them have coins on them, and coins also give you points. And the coins, I think they're cumulative and they score, so getting coins early is better, right? So there's definitely some interesting stuff going on here with decisions that you have to make, which is why I also like the game. But yeah, there you go. 6 games in this category that I cannot think of a name for.
Something and something.
Yeah, something and something. I thought about some other games like Can't Stop. Is that a roll in place? Because you roll the dice and then you decide how you're going to allocate them and you move the thing. And
I don't know.
Like it's so harder. We always talk about, like what games belong in this video versus that video. Like, does this really fit with what we're talking about here? But this one was harder than most, probably harder than any other gaming through mechanism videos to do, despite the fact that this is a really popular genre. I wouldn't say there's a lot of games in this genre, but there are a few in here that are very popular. I mean, there's a whole group. Maybe they even won the Spiel des Jahres, which was the that, what is it? That's Pretty Clever.
Yeah.
There's several games.
Ganz schön clever.
Ganz schön clever.
Whatever. It's
called. Right. Yeah. And then of course, I mentioned Yahtzee, and then there's other stuff like Silver and Gold and Railroad Ink, and so there's like I said, a lot of popular games, but it's still sort of hard to decide what belongs in here and what doesn't. But Anyway, that's 6 games that we lumped together for the purposes of this video.
Was I didn't look at all the people's choice because a lot of times those polls get crazy with how many things get added. But while I was describing one of my games, I kind of thought maybe I should have picked this, but I was already describing my second game, I think. But was that Super Skill Arcade in the poll at all?
No,
that game is so good.
Not in there. Super Skill Pinball. I mean, I've never played it.
It's so good.
Yeah, and nobody else added it. I mean, I always seed the poll with I look for the games that are the most rated on BGG, so they're like the most popular, not necessarily the highest ranked, meaning they're getting the most votes or the best ratings. Just the most people have played this game and have therefore rated it. So I'll seed the poll with some of those, and then somebody. I think the only one besides what I added in there that got added was somebody added Patchwork Doodle, which I've never even heard of. Quicks was in there. Nobody voted for Quicks though. No love for Quicks.
Oh, that was actually on my that was on my short list too. It's one of the ones my wife likes. We got it for like $2 at Kohl's after Christmas last year. It's a pretty fun little game. I don't know if you ever played it, but
no, I haven't. But and there are some. I'll call them families of mechanisms, sort of categorizations on BGG, where there's like flip and right and roll and right. And then they have things that are clearly not flip and right, that are flipped in place, like Tiny Towns are in there. Yeah. So the categories are all sort of screwed up. That game that I really liked, Decathlon, was on there, but I don't consider that a roll and right because the only thing you're writing down is your score, right? That's not what a roll and right's about. So anyway, this category leaves a lot for interpretation. But I will tell you that the 6 games we named, are solid games, right? So if you're interested in, these games that are generally pretty easy to teach, pretty quick to play, generally support a lot of players, there's a lot on this list to look for. But,
Mine didn't. Mine only went up to 4.
Well, that's true. Well, Guild of Merchants Explorers only goes up to 4. Tiny Towns theoretically goes up to 6, right? So, yeah. But the Cartographers and Welcome to, right? Those go up to 99, and those were, and that's just or 100 actually, and that's just because the game comes with a pad of 100, right?
Yeah,
if you buy, I can tell you that during COVID we played Cartographers via Zoom. I just sent everybody a PDF of the game, and then I set the cards up. The cards that you flip over and the scoring cards up on my table and put a camera on it, right? And we played, that way, and you could play an infinite number of people that way, right? So, yeah. Well, assuming you don't play with the ambush rule, because passing PDF via Zoom doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
let me zip that up and send it to you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm Steven. That's Lloyd. We're from Just Got Played. This has been Gaming Through Mechanisms. Thanks for joining us. If you are interested in watching more of these videos, please hit that subscribe button. Please give us a like if you enjoyed this video. That really does help us out. If you want to follow us on other channels or come talk to us on Discord or participate in the polls that we use to get people's choice for these videos, look at all the links down below in the description of this video. You'll find all of that stuff there. But until the next time, thanks.
Bye.